The night was quiet in the city, neon lights glowing on every street corner, advertising the newest inventions humans had created. Among the flashing signs was one that caught Daniel's eye: smart pets on sale, loyal, obedient, perfect companions. Everyone had them these days. Some people bought robotic dogs that could bark on command. Others owned mechanical cats that purred when touched. For the lonely or busy, smart pets had become normal. But Daniel had never cared for such things. He preferred silence, books, and the simple hum of his small apartment. Still, something about that evening felt strange. He had been walking home from work, his steps heavy, when a voice from the shadows called out, "You there? Are you looking for something different?" Daniel stopped. A small, hunched figure stood in the alley between two glowing shops. His stall was not like the others. No bright signs, no cheerful music, no polished machines. Instead, there was only one box resting on the table, sealed with strange glowing letters Daniel could not read. Curiosity pushed him closer. The man behind the stall leaned forward, his voice low and almost secretive. "This is no ordinary pet. It is rare, very rare. Most will never see such a thing. But tonight you are lucky." Daniel frowned. He was not the type to believe street sellers. Most were frauds selling broken tech or stolen parts. Yet the box, it gave off a strange presence as if it was alive. The seller seemed to sense his hesitation. "Do not fear. It will serve you well, loyal, obedient, and unlike anything you have ever owned." The price shocked Daniel. It was cheap, far cheaper than the sleek machines sold in the main market. Almost too cheap. Against his better judgment, he handed over the money. Perhaps it was exhaustion from a long day. Perhaps it was the strange pull in his chest. But he found himself walking away with the box in his arms. The glowing letters dimmed as if satisfied, and the seller vanished into the crowd like smoke. At home, Daniel placed the box on his table. His apartment was small, filled only with the basics: a bed, a desk, shelves of old paper books, and a cracked coffee mug by the sink. He studied the box carefully. No buttons, no clear lock, only those fading symbols etched across the surface. As his fingers brushed the top, the box shivered, releasing a soft hiss. Slowly, the seal cracked open. Daniel's heart raced. He expected gears, lights, maybe the shining head of a robotic creature. But what he saw froze him in place. Inside, curled up like a frightened child, was not a machine. It was a girl. Her skin glowed faintly under the dim light, marked with lines that shimmered like silver rivers. Her eyes snapped open, glowing bright and unearthly, fixing on him with fear and exhaustion. Her wrists were bound by thin metallic cuffs, and her body trembled as though she had been locked inside for days. Daniel stumbled back. What is this?" he whispered. The girl's lips moved, her voice weak but sharp with desperation. "Please, don't return me. They will find me. Please." His breath caught in his throat. This was no smart pet. This was no machine. This was a living being. The girl struggled to sit up, chains rattling softly against the inside of the box. She was thin, fragile-looking, but her eyes burned with a strange light that made Daniel's skin crawl. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, trapped in some late-night fantasy after reading too many books about aliens. But then she reached out, her hand shaking, her touch cold but real against his wrist. "I am not what they told you," she whispered. "I am not a pet. I am not a machine. I am alive." Daniel's mind spun. He could almost hear the words of the seller again. Loyal, obedient, unlike anything you have ever owned. Had the man tricked him? Or had he known exactly what he was selling? The girl's eyes filled with fear as she looked around his small apartment, as if expecting something to burst through the walls at any moment. "They will come," she said softly, almost too soft for him to hear. "They always come. They do not let anyone escape." Daniel felt a cold weight press against his chest. He wanted to ask questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Who were they? But the words caught in his throat. The only thing he could think was that he had brought home something dangerous, something impossible. Outside, the city, lights flickered. A drone hummed past his window, its red eye scanning the streets below. Daniel's hand moved to close the blinds quickly, his pulse racing. When he turned back, the girl was still watching him, her glowing eyes filled with a strange mix of hope and terror. "Please," she said again, her voice breaking. "Don't give me back. If you do, I will die." In that moment, Daniel felt something inside him shift. She was not a machine, not a product, not something to be bought or sold. She was a living creature, alone, hunted, and begging him for safety. The box sat open on his table, its strange symbols fading to nothing as if its purpose was finished. The girl sat trembling in its place, her hands bound, her eyes glowing like stars. And Daniel realized he had stepped into something far greater than a simple purchase. The night outside seemed suddenly darker. The quiet city streets no longer felt safe. Somewhere out there in the shadows, the people or creatures who had built that box were searching. And Daniel knew they would not stop until they found her. What had he brought into his home? And more terrifying, what would happen when they came knocking on his door? Daniel sat frozen in his chair, staring at the strange girl who now sat on his table where the box had been. She hugged her knees close to her chest, shivering as though the air around her was too heavy to breathe. The faint glow on her skin pulsed with every heartbeat, and her silver markings shone brighter whenever she looked at him. For a long moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of city drones outside. Daniel finally found his voice. What are you?" he asked, his tone shaking. The girl's lips trembled before she spoke. "My name is Lyra," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but heavy with exhaustion. "I was created to serve, but I refused. They hid me inside that box to transport me as a product, but I escaped. I should not even be alive." Daniel's stomach twisted. Created? Transported? She was speaking like she was property. The memory of the vendor's words echoed again in his head. Loyal, obedient, unlike anything you've ever owned. He clenched his fists. Owned. The word sickened him now. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Who are they? Who is chasing you?" Lyra's eyes darkened. The glow in her pupils dimmed, replaced by something sharper, fear mixed with anger. "The Dominion," she said. "An empire that takes what it wants. They build slaves from flesh, from machines, from both. I was made to be their tool. But something inside me was different. They called me defective." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she looked away as if ashamed. Daniel's breath caught. He wanted to say something, anything, but words failed him. Instead, he reached forward slowly, carefully, and touched the metal cuffs on her wrists. They were cold and unyielding, small lights blinking faintly on their surface. He pulled, but they didn't budge. Lyra flinched. "Don't. Please don't." Daniel pulled his hand back immediately. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said firmly. "But I'm not keeping you in chains either." She looked at him then, her glowing eyes searching his face as if testing his truth. After a pause, she whispered, "Most humans would sell me. The Dominion pay very well." Daniel shook his head, a small humorless laugh escaping him. "I didn't even know you existed until 10 minutes ago. I don't care about their money. You're not for sale." For the first time since the box opened, her lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile, though it vanished quickly as her body tensed. Her head snapped toward the window. "They're near," she whispered. Daniel froze. He followed her gaze. At first he saw nothing. Then, outside, far across the street, 2 figures stood beneath a broken neon sign. Their outlines shimmered faintly, almost blending with the shadows, but their eyes, sharp, glowing blue slits, sweeping the buildings like hunting animals. Daniel's chest tightened. He reached instinctively for the lights, switching them off, plunging the room into near darkness. He ducked by the window, pulling Lyra with him. She clung to his arm, trembling, her markings glowing faintly through the dark. "Cover it," she hissed. "They'll see me." Daniel grabbed the nearest thing he could, a blanket from his chair, and threw it around her. She pressed her face into his shoulder, her breathing quick and shallow. Outside, the figures moved slowly, scanning the area, their voices like static carried by the wind. Daniel couldn't understand their words, but he didn't need to. He knew they were looking for her. The moment stretched forever. Then, just as suddenly, the figures vanished down the street, their glowing eyes fading into the night. Daniel exhaled shakily. He could feel his pulse hammering in his ears. He looked down at Lyra. She was still trembling, her hands gripping his sleeve tightly. He gently pulled her back and whispered, "They're gone. For now." Her eyes filled with tears, glowing, faintly in the dark. "You don't understand," she said. "They never stop. Once they mark someone, they will follow until that person is found or destroyed. You helped me open that box. Now, you are marked too." The weight of her words crashed down on him. Marked. That meant his quiet life, his safe little apartment, was already over. Daniel pushed himself to his feet and paced across the room, his mind racing. He thought about calling the police, but what could they do? They didn't even know about the Dominion, let alone how to fight them. He thought about returning her to the vendor, but no, the vendor was gone, vanished into thin air. And even if he could find him, Daniel knew he could not give her back. Not after seeing her beg, not after hearing her story. Finally, he turned back to her. "If they're coming for you," he said slowly, "then we can't stay here. We need to move." Lyra blinked, surprised. "You would protect me?" Daniel shrugged, though his chest was tight with fear. "I don't know what's happening. I don't understand any of this, but you're alive. You're not a machine. I can't just hand you over to be destroyed." Her eyes softened, and for the first time Daniel saw something more than fear in them. Gratitude. Hope. Then, suddenly, the apartment lights flickered. The hum of the fridge died. The entire block went dark. Outside, the city drones fell silent, their red eyes blinking out one by one. Lyra's breath caught. "They've cut the power," she whispered. "They've found us." Daniel felt ice in his veins as he reached for the only weapon he had, a heavy wrench from his tool drawer. He held it tightly, staring at the door, where faint shadows now moved beneath the crack. The silence shattered with a loud crash. The door trembled under a violent strike. Lyra's markings flared brightly, her chains glowing with the same light. She clutched Daniel's arm. "If they take me, everything will end. Please, don't let them." Daniel gritted his teeth, every instinct screaming to run, to hide, to surrender. But he forced himself to stand firm, raising the wrench and shaking. As for the first time in his life, Daniel realized he was not just fighting for himself. He was fighting for her, and as the door began to crack under the force of the next blow, Daniel whispered to himself, "You're not a pet. You're not a machine. You're a person, and I won't let them take you." The door exploded inward. Shadows rushed the room, and the real battle began. The door blasted off its hinges with a deafening crash, splinters flying across the room. Daniel stumbled back, shielding Lyra as three tall figures stormed inside. Their bodies shimmered as, if half hidden in light, cloaked with alien armor that bent the air around them. Their eyes glowed like burning ice, and their hands held weapons that hummed with energy. Lyra let out a cry and pressed herself against the wall. The markings on her skin pulsed brighter, as if reacting to their presence. Daniel gripped his wrench, with shaking hands, his chest pounding. He had never fought anyone before, let alone armored beings that looked like they had stepped out of a nightmare. The tallest of the hunters scanned the room. His voice came out like static through broken speakers. "Subject 1 on 17 located. Terminate witness." Daniel froze. Witness? They meant him. His stomach twisted, but something inside him snapped awake. He raised the wrench and shouted, his voice trembling but loud. "You're not taking her." The hunters moved without hesitation. One aimed his weapon at Daniel. The device hissed, and a blue beam shot across the room. Daniel dove to the side just in time. The beam struck his couch, burning straight through the fabric and leaving smoking ash. The smell of burnt cloth filled the air. Heart pounding, Daniel swung his wrench wildly at the closest hunter. The metal connected with a loud clang against the alien's helmet. It wasn't enough to break the armor, but it staggered the figure for a split second. That single moment gave Daniel the strength to keep going. Lyra screamed, her body glowing brighter. The chains on her wrists pulsed, sending sparks of light into the air. She clutched her head, as if in pain, and suddenly, a wave of energy burst from her body. The force knocked the hunters back a step, their weapons buzzing with interference. The tallest one snarled, voice harsh. Unstable power detected. Capture priority raised. Daniel's mind raced. He couldn't fight them head-on. They were too strong, too advanced. But his apartment was small, full of junk, pipes, and tools he had collected over the years. He grabbed a can of solvent from the shelf and hurled it at the hunter's weapon. The container burst, spraying liquid across the floor. Daniel struck a match and tossed it. Flames roared to life, forcing the hunters back for a moment. The heat washed over Daniel's face, sweat dripping down his temples. He pulled Lyra to her feet. "We have to move, now," he shouted. Lyra stumbled, still glowing, her voice weak. They won't stop." "I don't care," Daniel snapped, dragging her toward the window. He shoved it open and looked down at the alley 3 stories below. The drop made his stomach twist, but staying inside was certain death. He grabbed a coil of old cables he had kept for repairs and tied it quickly to the radiator. The hunters pushed through the flames, their armor blackened but unharmed. One raised his weapon again. Daniel didn't think. He shoved Lyra onto the cable and slid after her. Bullets of energy whizzed past, scorching the walls as they escaped into the night. They landed hard in the alley, Daniel's knees buckling under the impact. He groaned but forced himself up, pulling Lyra with him. Sirens echoed in the distance, but they weren't human police. Strange, high-pitched alarms rang from the hunter's craft hovering above the rooftops, its shape sharp and alien, glowing with blue light. Daniel pulled Lyra into the shadows of the alley, running through trash-strewn paths and broken fences. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he didn't stop. He could feel the hunters behind them, shadows moving along the rooftops, glowing eyes scanning the streets. They reached an abandoned subway entrance. Daniel pushed open the rusty gate and dragged Lyra inside. The air was damp and cold, the smell of mold filling the tunnels. They moved down the dark stairs, their footsteps echoing against the stone. Finally, Daniel leaned against a wall, gasping for breath. He looked at Lyra, who had collapsed to her knees. Her glow was fading, her face pale. He knelt beside her. "Are you okay?" Her voice was faint. "I used too much. Too soon. They'll track me. They always do." Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to comfort her, but his mind was buzzing with questions. What was she? What power had just erupted from her body? Why were they so desperate to take her back? Before he could speak, Lyra lifted her glowing eyes to his. "I am more than what they made me," she whispered. "They called me a weapon, but I am not. My power is not for them, it is for freedom. And now, it is tied to you." Daniel stared at her. "Tied to me?" She nodded weakly. "When you touched my chains, the link was made. They cannot take me without you now. And if they kill you, they kill me too." The word sent a chill down his spine. His life was no longer just his own. He was part of something much bigger, something terrifying. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the subway tunnels. The hunters were coming. Their blue lights glowed faintly in the distance. Daniel tightened his grip on the wrench. He looked at Lyra, who struggled to stand. He knew he was just one human, ordinary and untrained. But he also knew something the hunters did not. Humans did not give up when pushed against the wall. He pulled Lyra up, steadying her. "Then we fight together," he said. His voice shook, but his eyes burned with determination. The glow in Lyra's eyes brightened, her chains sparking again. She gave a small nod. Together. As the hunters' shadows grew closer, the dark tunnels filled with the sound of approaching war. And for the first time, Daniel felt not just fear, but defiance. The tunnel shook with every step the hunters took, their boots heavy, their glowing eyes sweeping through the darkness like blades of light. Daniel gripped his wrench tighter, the metal slick with sweat. His heart thudded so hard it felt like it might break through his chest, but he stood his ground. Beside him, Lyra struggled to rise. Her chains sparked faintly, her skin glowing with dim silver light. She looked weak, but her eyes burned with a strange fire. Daniel reached out to steady her. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Lyra shook her head. "No, we fight together." The hunters turned the corner, their weapons raised. The leader pointed directly at Daniel. "Eliminate the human. Secure the subject." Daniel's mind screamed at him to run, but his body refused to move. Something had changed inside him since the moment Lyra begged for his help. He wasn't just a man with a tool anymore. He was the only barrier standing between her and the monsters who wanted to take her back. The first shot fired. A streak of blue energy cut through the tunnel, striking the wall inches from Daniel's head. Stone exploded, dust filling the air. Daniel ducked and swung his wrench with all his strength at a broken pipe overhead. The pipe burst open, releasing a flood of steaming water. The blast sprayed across the hunters, making their glowing armor flicker with sparks. Daniel shouted, "Now, Lyra!" Lyra's markings flared. She raised her bound hands, and for a moment her entire body blazed with light. Energy surged from her chest, a wave of pure force that slammed into the hunters. Two of them staggered back, their weapons torn from their grips. The third, the leader, dug his armored boots into the ground and raised a shield of blue energy to block the blast. Daniel charged forward. He wasn't strong, he wasn't trained, but he was desperate. He leapt at the leader, swinging his wrench. The blow landed with a loud crack, shattering the hunter's visor. A hiss of steam escaped, revealing an alien, face beneath. Skin dark and scaled, teeth sharp, eyes like shards of ice. The creature snarled and struck Daniel with the back of its hand, sending him crashing against the tunnel wall. Pain shot through his ribs, but he refused to stay down. Lyra cried out, her glow flaring brighter. She knelt beside Daniel, her hands trembling. "You can't fight them alone," she whispered. Daniel groaned, blood on his lip. "Then don't let me fight alone." Her eyes widened at his words. For the first time, she felt the truth of what made humans dangerous. It wasn't their strength or their weapons. It was the fire inside them, the refusal to surrender even when hope was gone. She stood, her chains glowing hot. With a scream, she pulled against them. Sparks flew, and then the metal snapped. The cuffs shattered into pieces, falling to the ground. Her glow expanded, filling the tunnel with blinding silver light. The hunters shielded their eyes, stumbling back. Lyra's voice rang out, stronger than before. "I am not your weapon. I am free." The light surged forward, a wave of energy that blasted through the tunnel. The walls shook, dust rained from the ceiling, and the hunters were hurled backward like rag dolls. Their weapons fizzled out, their cloaks flickering. For the first time, fear showed in their glowing eyes. Daniel pushed himself up, wincing at the pain in his ribs. He stared in awe at Lyra, her body surrounded by swirling energy. She looked powerful, unstoppable, but her eyes were still on him, waiting, needing his strength. He limped to her side, raising the wrench like a sword. "If they want you," he shouted, "they'll have to go through me too." Together they stood, human and alien, fragile but unyielding. The leader snarled, dragging himself to his feet. His broken visor sparked, his armor cracked, but his voice still roared through the tunnel. "You cannot escape the Dominion. You are property." Daniel spat blood and glared at him. She belongs to no one. Lyra raised her hands. The tunnel, filled with blinding light once more. Energy roared out, tearing through the walls, shaking the ground like an earthquake. The hunters were thrown back, slamming into the far wall with a thunderous crash. Their armor shattered, their glowing eyes dimmed, and one by one they collapsed into silence. The light faded slowly, leaving the tunnel scorched and broken. Daniel dropped to his knees, gasping for breath. Lyra collapsed beside him, her glow fading to a soft shimmer. She looked at him with wide, trembling eyes. "I didn't know I could," she whispered. Daniel gave a weak smile, even through the pain. "Guess we both learned something tonight." For a long moment there was only silence. Then, faintly, Daniel heard a sound above them, the low, menacing hum of engines. He looked up through the cracks in the tunnel ceiling. Dozens of lights glowed in the night sky. More ships, more hunters. The Dominion wasn't finished. Lyra's hand gripped his tightly. Her voice was soft, but firm. "You shouldn't be part of this. You don't have to fight for me." Daniel squeezed her hand, shaking his head. "You said our lives are tied now. That means your fight is my fight, and I don't run from family." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't from fear. They were from something deeper, hope. Above them, the sky rumbled with the arrival of more Dominion forces. The city would soon know the truth. And Daniel realized something else. Tonight, he had shown them what it meant to stand as a human, not the strongest, not the smartest, but the most stubborn. The kind that would fight until the very end. For the first time, the Dominion had seen it too. And they would never forget. The hunters had come to capture a runaway. Instead, they had awakened humanity's fury. The tunnel lay in ruins, smoke curling up from broken walls. The hunters' bodies lay scattered, their armor cracked, their glowing eyes dimmed. But Daniel and Lyra had no time to rest. Above them, the sky trembled, with the sound of engines. Dozens of Dominion ships hovered like vultures, their lights piercing the night. The battle was far from over. Daniel helped Lyra stand. She leaned on him, still glowing faintly, her breath uneven. Her chains lay broken on the floor, sparks fading into silence. For the first time, she was free. Yet freedom had come with a cost. The Dominion would not forgive this rebellion. Daniel looked at her. "We can't stay here. They'll burn the city just to take you back." Lyra's eyes filled with sorrow. "You should leave me. If they capture me, they will spare you, but if you stay..." Daniel cut her off, shaking his head. "No, you don't get it. I don't care about what happens to me. You're not just some experiment. You're not a weapon. You're a person, and you're not alone anymore." Her lips parted, trembling. For a moment, she looked at him as though she had never been spoken to like that before. Not as property, not as a tool, but as someone worth protecting. The ground rumbled as explosions shook the city above. Civilians screamed in the distance, running from the strange lights descending from the sky. Daniel and Lyra climbed out of the subway through a broken vent, emerging into a street filled with chaos. Dominion drones buzzed through the air, scanning every corner. Daniel pulled her into an alley, crouching low. "We need to get out of the city." But Lyra shook her head. "Running will not end this. They will hunt us forever unless..." She paused, her glowing eyes searching his face. "Unless we fight back." Daniel blinked. "Fight back? It's just us. Look at them. Ships, drones, soldiers. We don't even have a gun." Lyra raised her hands. The silver glow pulsed through her veins again. "We do not need their weapons. I have power, and you have something they fear more than anything." Daniel frowned. "And what's that?" Her voice softened. "Your will, your refusal to bow. That is what they fear. That is what makes humans dangerous." Her words sank into him, heavy and true. Daniel had always thought of himself as ordinary, a man with no special skills, no great strength, But standing here with her hand in his, he realized he had something no Dominion machine could calculate. The stubborn fire that refused to surrender. The sky split open as the largest ship descended, its shadow covering the street. A voice boomed, from its speakers, deep and commanding. "Return the subject. Surrender the human. Resistance will be crushed." Daniel glanced at Lyra. She squeezed his hand, her glow spreading into his skin, wrapping him in warmth. Suddenly, he felt her strength flow through him. The bond between them deepened, stronger than chains, stronger than fear. Daniel stepped into the street, holding the wrench high, his voice carrying through the chaos. "You want her? Then you'll have to fight every human on Earth, and trust me, humans don't break easy." The words echoed, and for a moment even the civilians hiding nearby felt something awaken. Whispers spread through the crowd. "He's standing against them. He's fighting for us." Lyra raised her arms. Her body blazed with light, brighter than the ships above. Energy roared out of her, forming a shield that wrapped around the street. The Dominion drones fired beams of blue, but the blasts shattered harmlessly against the silver barrier. The leader's ship descended lower, weapons charging. But Daniel didn't step back. He held his wrench like a sword, standing tall beside Lyra. "This is our world," he shouted. "And you will not take it from us," Lyra screamed, unleashing her full power. The shield expanded outward, slamming into the drones, tearing them apart with bursts of light. The massive ship trembled as the wave struck it, sparks bursting across its surface. With a thunderous roar, the warship tilted, smoke pouring from its engines. The Dominion had expected an easy capture. Instead, they faced resistance. A human and an alien girl standing together, their bond stronger than fear, stronger than chains. The ship retreated, limping back into the sky. One by one, the other vessels followed, their lights vanishing into the dark clouds. The city fell silent again, broken only by the sound of distant fires and frightened whispers. Daniel dropped to his knees, exhausted, his chest heaving. Lyra knelt beside him, her glow fading softly. For the first time, there was no fear in her eyes. Only peace. "You saved me," she whispered. Daniel gave a tired laugh. "I think we saved each other." Around them, the people of the city began to emerge from hiding. They stared in awe at the glowing girl and the human who had defied the impossible. Hope spread in their faces, hope they hadn't felt in years. Lyra looked at Daniel, her voice steady. "The Dominion will return. Stronger. They will not forgive this." Daniel met her gaze, his jaw firm. "Then let them come. Because now they know. Humans won't kneel." For a long moment they stood in the broken street, hand in hand, staring at the sky. The night was no longer silent. It was filled with something new. Not fear, not despair, but the spark of defiance. And so began a bond that would not only change their lives but shake the galaxy itself. Because Daniel had bought what he thought was a smart pet, and instead he had found family.